So we are now looking at the poem Anniversaries of War by the Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai. And as we already mentioned in the introduction, I think most of the points about this poem have already been mentioned in the introduction. We read a very detailed introduction, not just to the poet, but also about the theme of the poem. So I think it almost every point in the poem has been discussed already, but we will still go through it line by line to try and appreciate the poem better. So it, as we already mentioned, the poet Amichai has brought his children to this place called Tel Gath, which is a biblical site and supposed to be the birthplace of the biblical character named Goliath. So it begins with that word, Tel Gath. Tel Gath. I brought my children to the mound where once I fought battles, so they would understand the things I did do and forgive me for the things I didn't do. The distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger and I grow smaller. Those days grow away from me. These times grow away from me too. And I'm in the middle without them on this mound with my children. A light afternoon wind blows, but only a few people move in the blowing wind. Bend down a little with the grass and the flowers. Dandelions cover the mound, you could say, as dandelions in multitude. I brought my children to the mound, and we sat there on its back and its side, as in the poem by Shmuel Harnagid in Spain. Like me, a man of hills and a man of wars, who sang a lullaby to his soldiers before the battle. Yet, I did not talk to my heart as he did, but to my children. To the mound, we were the resurrection, fleeting like the springtime, eternal like it too. So that is the poem. It's a very short poem. Now let us go line by line. Tel Gath. We have already mentioned, this is the name of that place. It is also called Tel as Safi because it has this white Safi. It has something to do with whiteness, white chalk cliffs. ഒക്കെയുള്ള ഒരു സ്ഥലമാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് അതിന് ടെൽ എസ് സഫി എന്നും പറയും, ടെൽ ഗാത്ത് എന്നും പറയും. ആൻഡ് വി ഓൾസോ സെഡ് ഈ ടെൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിന് ഒരു മീനിങ് എന്താന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് എ മൗണ്ട്. മൗണ്ട് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് ലൈക്ക് എ സ്മോൾ ഹിൽ, നോട്ട് എ പ്രോപ്പർ ഹിൽ ബട്ട് ലൈക്ക് എ small rise in the ground. It is like a small hill, and the important thing about this tel is that it has different layers of soil. So that shows, as we already mentioned, the different histories of this place. From the Paleolithic and Neolithic ages onwards, this place has existed. It is mentioned in biblical times, and it also has a lot of history from that time to the contemporary times, including battles that were fought here. Many people were killed in those battles. All those stories are there. So Tel Gath, and Gath is, as we already saw in the introduction, it also has this meaning of wine presses. Wine ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന wine press എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ അത് ഒരു meaning ഉണ്ട് Hebrew ഭാഷയിൽ. So this whole that is the meaning of this place's name, Tel Gath. So that is where the poem is set. So in the very first line, he makes it very clear where the poem is set, in Tel Gath. I brought my children to the mount. The poet has brought his children for a trip to this mount, to the place known as Tel Gath, where once I fought battles. So this is a place where, as I mentioned, he has fought in 2 or 3 wars during his time. He was a soldier, even though he was a pacifist as well. So this is a place where I once fought battles. But it is also the place where many other historical battles have happened. It is a place where many people died and were buried. It is a place where there is a lot of history of violence, of life, death, etc. So I have brought my children to a place where I am also part of its history, and there is also a much, much longer history to this place. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഒരു സ്ഥലത്തേക്കാണ് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളെ കൊണ്ടുവന്നിരിക്കുന്നത്. I brought my children to the mound where once I fought battles. Why did I bring them? So they would understand the things I did do and forgive me for the things I didn't do. Again, as we already mentioned, there are some things that you do in battle that you don't do otherwise. യുദ്ധത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ സാധാരണ ജീവിതത്തിൽ ചെയ്യാത്ത പല കാര്യങ്ങളും, including killing other people or many other things you might do, which under normal circumstances you wouldn't do. And if people come to know about it, they will judge you for those things. And I don't want to hide those things from my children. That is the important part that he's saying. I don't want to pretend to my children that their father is a perfect person who doesn't have any faults, who has not made any mistakes in his life. I want them to learn from my mistakes so that they do not repeat my mistakes. So I have brought them to this place where once I fought battles so that they would understand the things that I did do. Whether they forgive me, whether they judge me, I want them to understand what are the things that our father did. In what circumstances did he do that? And maybe they will learn in their own lives. When they have to face such impossible choices, they will learn how to do things in a better manner. So they would understand the things I did do and forgive me for the things I didn't do. Similarly, there are also many things that you should have done but you don't do when you are in a very difficult situation, like in the midst of battle. So I want them to understand not just the things that I did, but also the things that I didn't do. Maybe there are good things that I did. Fine, let them understand that and understand what gave me the ability to do those good things. Maybe there are bad things that I did that normally I wouldn't do. I don't want them to do. Nobody should do those things, but I had to do it because of my circumstances, and I want them to understand in what circumstance that happened. There are some things that I didn't do that I should have done. He uses the word forgive me. So ചെയ്യാതിരുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ, അത് ചെയ്യാതിരുന്നത് നല്ലതാണെന്ന് ഒരു ഇമാജിനേഷനേ ഇല്ല. കാരണം നമ്മളൊരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യാതിരുന്നത് നന്നായി ചെയ്യാതിരുന്നത് അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ you don't need anybody's forgiveness. But he's saying, I wish they will forgive me for the things that I didn't do. So obviously he's talking about things that he should have done, but he did not manage to do. So hopefully if they understand, then they will be able to forgive me. ഒരാൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല എന്ന് നമ്മൾ പുറമേ നിന്ന് നോക്കുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ജഡ്ജ് ചെയ്യാൻ വളരെ എളുപ്പമാണ്. പക്ഷെ അവരെ മനസ്സിലാക്കുമ്പോൾ, എന്ത് സർക്കംസ്റ്റൻസിലാണ് അവരത് ചെയ്തത് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ചെയ്യാതിരുന്നത് നമ്മൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് നമുക്ക് അവരെ forgive ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്. So that is why I brought my children here. This place is very much a part of my own personal history. I have done a lot of things here which I am not proud of, and also this is a place where I didn't do a lot of things that I should have done, but I don't want to hide any of this from my children. I have brought them here to encounter that aspect of my life as well. Okay, so that is a first stanza. Telgath. I brought my children to the mount where once I fought battles, so they would understand the things I did do and forgive me for the things I didn't do. And then he starts being a little bit more thoughtful, reflective. We said that he is an introspective poet. His writings are very introspective. നമ്മൾ ഉള്ളിലേക്ക് ചിന്തിച്ച് നമ്മളെ പറ്റി തന്നെ ചിന്തിക്കുന്ന അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു ടൈപ്പ് റൈറ്റിംഗ് ആണ്. So it's a meditative kind of writing. And now he's talking. In the next stanza, he is thinking about time, history, etc. The distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger and I grow smaller. It's a very interesting image that he uses there. My striding legs. Striding means walking very fast. So I am striding and my legs, because I'm walking, my legs are striding. And the distance between my legs and my head. What is the distance between your legs and your head? It is your height, right? So he is saying the distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger and I grow smaller. This has a lot of meanings. It could mean that he is growing up. When the distance between your legs and your head grows, that means that you are growing up. So he's thinking about his past, how much he has grown from the time that he fought battles here until now. He was a young man. Actually, he was only 18 years old when he went to fight for the very first time. So from that time onwards, now he is a father, he has his own children, and he has come here. So there is a huge distance between that time and now. And in that distance, he has grown a bit. So in one sense, he has physically grown. But at the same time, there are other kinds of growing and other kinds of distances as well. The distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger, and I grow smaller. I grow smaller. That is another point that he's making. How do you grow smaller? Usually you grow bigger and bigger. You don't grow smaller. But here he might be talking. He's most probably talking about the fact that as he is walking, his shadow might be growing smaller. And when does your shadow grow smaller? Your shadow is lengthy at early in the morning and late in the evening, and it is very short during noontime. So he might be talking about how he and his children have reached this place in the morning, and as they grow, he can see his shadow growing smaller and smaller. So then he is talking, in that case, he's talking about that particular day and how time passes on that particular day from morning to noon. Time pass ചെയ്യുന്നതിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ടായിരിക്കും. അപ്പോ ഒരു രീതിയിൽ പറഞ്ഞാൽ അയാൾ കഴിഞ്ഞ പ്രാവശ്യം ഇവിടെ വന്നപ്പോൾ മുതൽ ഇന്ന് വരെയുള്ള ഒരു ടൈമിനെ പറ്റി പറയുന്നുണ്ട്, which is a matter of several years, from the time that he first came and fought here to the time that he is now visiting with his children. അത് over the course of years ഉള്ള ഒരു ടൈമാണ്. എന്നാൽ I grow smaller എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ, if we are imagining that, it is his, obviously he cannot grow smaller, right? He can't become small. So his shadow must be growing smaller, which means that there is a kind of distance that is being crossed within the same day from morning to noon. That is when his shadow becomes smaller and smaller. So actual physical distance il thanne രണ്ട് തരം ഡിസ്റ്റൻസിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ട് അയാൾ പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. രണ്ട് തരം ടൈം പാസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ട്. It is about the passage of time. One is about the passage of time through years, and the other is about the passage of time through hours on that particular day. But it is not just the physical distance or the actual passage of time that he's talking about. He's also talking about his memories. The distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger and I grow smaller. Those days grow away from me. These times grow away from me too. Those days grow away from me. Those days, those എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഡിസ്റ്റൻസിൽ ഉള്ള ഏതോ ഡേയ്സിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ടാണ് പറയുന്നത്. We say this and that, right? These എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് അടുത്തുള്ളതിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ടും that those എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ദൂരെയുള്ളതിനെ പറ്റിയിട്ടാണ്. So when he says those days grow away from me, he is talking about some distant days. He is probably talking about his memories, about the days when he came and fought these wars. So he's saying, I feel that those days feel very, very distant from me. But at the same time, he's also saying these times grow away from me too. These times, current times. ഇന്ന് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളുമായി ഇവിടെ വന്ന് നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ ആക്ച്വലി ദിസ് ടൈം ഇസ് വെരി ക്ലോസ് ടു മീ, ബട്ട് ദിസ് ടൈം ഇസ് ഓൾസോ ഗ്രോയിങ് അവേ ഫ്രം മീ. വാട്ട് ഡസ് ദാറ്റ് മീൻ? വിത്ത് എവറി മൊമെന്റ് ദിസ് മൊമെന്റ് ഇസ് going further and further away from me. It will also become part of the past, because with every moment we are growing into the future. Another way of looking at it is also that when he says these times grow away from me too, he is talking about the present which belongs to his children, the present that is stretching out into the future. So he is placing himself in the past and saying, എൻ്റെ കാലഘട്ടം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് പാസ്റ്റ് ആണ്, അത് പക്ഷെ എൻ്റെ ചെറുപ്പകാലം, എൻ്റെ എക്സ്പീരിയൻസസ് അതെല്ലാം കഴിഞ്ഞു, അതൊക്കെ എൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് നിന്ന് ദൂരേക്ക് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇനിയുള്ള കാലം എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളുടെ കാലമാണ്, അത് പ്രസന്റ് ആണ്, അത് ഫ്യൂച്ചറുമാണ്. അത് പക്ഷെ ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ പ്രസന്റിൽ എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളുടെ കൂടെ ഇരിക്കുമ്പോൾ ഐ ക്യാൻ സീ ദ ഫ്യൂച്ചർ സ്ട്രെച്ചിങ് ഇൻ ഫ്രണ്ട് ഓഫ് മീ വെൻ മൈ ചിൽഡ്രൻ വിൽ ഗ്രോ അവേ ഫ്രം മീ. Just like their life will grow away from me, just that like their future will grow away from me, they are also going to grow up and they are going to go away from me. So right now I and my children are very close, but as they grow up, they cannot always stay with their father. They will have to go on and live their own lives. So they will also grow away from me. So throughout this stanza, he is focusing on this word grow, and he's talking about different types of growth. On the one hand, there is a kind of growth that he has experienced. Both the physical growth, അയാള് ചെറുപ്പം 18 വയസ്സിൽ നിന്ന് അയാൾ ഇന്നത്തെ പ്രായത്തിലേക്ക് വളർന്നു വന്നതിന്റെ ആ ഫിസിക്കൽ ഗ്രോത്തിനെ പറ്റി പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ബട്ട് ദർ ഇസ് ഓൾസോ എ മെന്റൽ ഗ്രോത്ത്. ദർ ഇസ് എ ഡിസ്റ്റൻസ് ബിറ്റ്വീൻ ദ മാൻ ഹി വാസ് ദെൻ ആൻഡ് ദ മാൻ ഹി ഈസ് നൗ. അന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്ന ഞാനല്ല ഇന്നത്തെ ഞാൻ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഒരു മെന്റൽ ഗ്രോത്ത് കൂടിയുണ്ട്. അന്ന് ഞാൻ വിശ്വസിച്ചിരുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളായിരിക്കില്ല ചിലപ്പോൾ ഇന്ന് ഞാൻ വിശ്വസിച്ചത്. അന്ന് ചെയ്ത കാര്യങ്ങൾ, യുദ്ധത്തിൽ ചെയ്ത കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചിലപ്പോൾ ഇന്ന് ഞാൻ ചെയ്യില്ല. ഇന്ന് ചിലപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ യുദ്ധത്തിന് പോവില്ല. നമുക്കറിയില്ല. ആ അന്നത്തെ ഞാനും ഇന്നത്തെ ഞാനും തമ്മിൽ ഒരു ഡിസ്റ്റൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. അവിടെ സംഭവിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നതും ഒരു ഗ്രോത്ത് ആണ്. പക്ഷെ അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഐ ഹാവ് മൈ ഗ്രോയിങ് ചിൽഡ്രൻ ഇൻ ഫ്രണ്ട് ഓഫ് മീ റൈറ്റ് നൗ, ആൻഡ് ഐ നോ ദാറ്റ് ഇൻ ദ ഫ്യൂച്ചർ ദേ ആർ ഗോയിങ് ടു ഗ്രോ അവേ ഫ്രം മീ. ആൻഡ് സോ those days grow away from me, these times grow away from me too, and I am in the middle without them on this mount with my children. Right now I am in the middle. I am in the present, which is in the middle of the past and the future. Past has grown away from me, future will grow away from me. Right now I am in the middle. Right now I am in the present without them. Without them means I am without my memories. I am the days of the past are not with me now. The days of the future are also not with me now. Right now it is just me and my children on this mount. Without them in the parayumbo, he may also be talking about his comrades who fought with him in the war, and they have died in this particular place. Maybe it is because of something he did. Maybe it is because of something he didn't do. Maybe he couldn't protect them well enough. We don't know all those things. So maybe he's also thinking about them. He's saying there are so many people who should be here in the present, but they are not here. I am here without them. But who is with me right now? My children, who are my hopes for a better future. So I am in the middle. പാസ്റ്റിലുമല്ല പ്രസന്റിലുള്ള ഇന്ന്, പാസ്റ്റിലും അല്ല ഫ്യൂച്ചറിലും അല്ല, ഇന്ന് പ്രസന്റിലാണ് ഞാൻ. പാസ്റ്റിലുണ്ടായിരുന്ന പലരും എൻ്റെ കൂടെ ഇല്ല. ഫ്യൂച്ചറിൽ ഇനി ഉണ്ടാവാൻ പോകുന്ന മൊമെന്റ്സ്, ഉണ്ടാവാൻ പോകുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളൊന്നും ഇപ്പൊ സംഭവിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. അവരാരും പാസ്റ്റും പ്രസന്റും എൻ്റെ കൂടെ അല്ല. I am right now here in the middle, in the present, on this mount, at this place with my children. That is how we are. So the distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger, and I grow smaller. Those days grow away from me. These times grow away from me too. And I am in the middle without them on this mount, without my children. Now, third stanza. A light afternoon wind blows, but only a few people move in the blowing wind. Bend down a little with the grass and the flowers. Dandelions cover the mount, you could say, as dandelions in multitude. Now he's describing the scene there. A light afternoon wind blows. So this is now afternoon. So as we said, his shadow has shortened, which it has grown smaller, which means that from morning they have been spending time in this place until noon, and now it is afternoon. They're spending the whole day at this Telgath. A light afternoon wind blows, and however, there are only a few people moving in the blowing wind. It is them, and it is not a very crowded place. Even though it is a historical place, it might be a tourist place, but still there are not many people there. They are not being disturbed by a lot of people. Only a few people move in the blowing wind. Bend down a little with the grass and the flowers. So just like in the light breeze, in the light wind, the grass and the flowers bow down a bit or bend down a bit. Just like that, people are also moving and they are swaying a little bit. So people are actually, when tourists go to a place, they are not in any hurry, right? So they are just like the grass and the flowers. They are enjoying themselves. They are sitting down, they are standing up. So to him, it looks like it is not crowded. There are only very few people, and they all look like grass and flowers to him. Dandelions cover the mount. So the mount, the hill, is covered with dandelions. Dandelions are a kind of flowers which look like this. So they are wildflowers, dandelions, and dandelions are not the kind of flower that you grow. നമ്മൾ വാങ്ങിച്ചിട്ട് വളർത്തുന്ന ഫ്ലവർ അല്ല, അത് വൈൽഡ് ആയിട്ട് തന്നെ ഉണ്ടായി വരുന്നതാണ്. And first of all, it is very bright. Most of them are yellow like this, and they are very bright, and therefore they are very cheerful, right? So even though this is a place where a lot of wars have happened, a lot of people have died, you can even consider it a kind of burial mounds. Even then, the place is covered with these dandelion flowers, and therefore it looks like a very cheerful sight. So now there are many people just like him coming here with his children. There are many tourists who have come here. Not too many, it is not crowded, but still there are traces of life there. People are moving across this hill, and they are enjoying being there with these dandelions. So the people are also being compared to the grass and the flowers blowing in the wind, bending in the wind, just like the dandelions. And as I already mentioned, dandelions are wild flowers, and some people consider them to be weeds. But dandelions wild ആയിട്ട് വളർന്നുകൊണ്ട് അത് weeds ആണ്, അതിനെ പറിച്ചു കളയാന്നൊക്കെ പറയും. പക്ഷേ it is actually a beautiful sight. If there are many such dandelion flowers, it's a beautiful sight. Like, for example, like this picture here, it shows many dandelions growing in a field, right? So it's a very beautiful sight. And if the mound is covered with dandelions, even that place with its dark history becomes a very bright and beautiful sight. So they are wildflowers. And what I was saying about weeds is also that whenever people try to uproot the dandelions are very stubborn. They keep coming back. അതിന്റെ ചെറിയൊരു seed എവിടെയെങ്കിലും വീണാൽ മതി, it will sprout again and it will grow again. So dandelions are not just a symbol of cheerfulness and happiness, but they are also a symbol of stubbornness, in the sense that, no matter how much you try to eradicate them, they will not be completely eradicated. They will not be completely dead. They will somehow come back. They will find some way to come back. So that shows the irrepressible nature of the human race as well. So dandelions, he's comparing people to dandelions, and he's saying just like dandelions cover this mound, you could say as dandelions in multitude. Multitude means several, ഒരുപാട് dandelions ഉണ്ട്, just like the fields, the pictures that we saw. So that is how dandelions are there. And just like that, human beings are also like that. We are like dandelions on the face of this earth. Maybe there will be many wars and there will be many disasters that result in us being killed, but we will somehow find a way to survive. So there is a moment of hope. There is a slight sign of hope that he's bringing in there. And his children are also the symbols of hope. So he's saying, even though a lot of my friends have died here, a lot of other people have died here, I have killed people here even though I didn't want to, still the human race is not something that can be so easily eradicated, whether it is through disasters or through wars and genocide. Still we will survive. Just like dandelions, we are survivors. A light afternoon wind blows, but only a few people move in the blowing wind. Bend down a little with the grass and the flowers. Dandelions cover the mound, you could say, as dandelions in multitude. I brought my children to the mound, and we sat there, on its back and its side, as in the poem by Shmuel HaNagid in Spain. Like me, a man of hills and a man of wars, who sang a lullaby to his soldiers before the battle. Yet I did not talk to my heart as he did, but to my children. To the mound, we were the resurrection, fleeting like the springtime, eternal like it too. So I brought my children to the mount. So this is how he has begun the poem. And in the very last stanza also, he repeated, I brought my children to the mount and we sat there on its back and its side. ഞാനും എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളും ഈ മൗണ്ടിൽ വന്നിരുന്നു. ഒരു full day we spent there on its back and its side. So this mound ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിന്റെ സൈഡിൽ ഇരുന്ന്, wherever you sit, they sat on the sides of the mound എന്ന് മാത്രമേ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ. But he is using a quote here, on its back and its side എന്നുള്ളത് in quotation marks ആണ്. And he's saying, as in the poem by Shmuel HaNagid in Spain. So this is a quotation taken from a poem by Shmuel HaNagid. And as we already mentioned, Shmuel HaNagid was a medieval poet. He was a Jewish poet who lived in Spain. Spainil Iberia enna parna സ്ഥലത്ത് താമസിച്ചിരുന്ന മിഡിൽ ഏജസിൽ താമസിച്ചിരുന്ന medieval ടൈംസിൽ താമസിച്ചിരുന്ന ഒരു പോയറ്റാണ് ഷ്മുവൽ ഹാ നഗീദ്. അപ്പൊ അയാൾക്ക് സ്പാനിഷ് പോയറ്റ് ആയിട്ടും അറിയപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ട്, കാരണം സ്പെയിനിലായിരുന്നു എന്നതുകൊണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ ജൂയിഷ് ആയതുകൊണ്ട്, ഹീബ്രുവിൽ എഴുതിയ ഒരാളായതുകൊണ്ട് അയാൾ ഒരു ജൂയിഷ് പോയറ്റ് ആയിട്ടും അറിയപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ട്. So just like in the poem by Shmuel HaNagid, we sat here on this mount, I and my children, on its back and its side. And then he is now talking about Shmuel HaNagid. കഴിഞ്ഞ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പറഞ്ഞു Shmuel HaNagid was also he was a soldier and a statesman. He was not just a poet, he was a soldier and a statesman, and he fought in a lot of wars. But while he was on the battlefield, he kept writing poetry. So now Amichai is comparing himself to Shmuel HaNagid in that both of them were soldiers, both of them are also poets. Like me, a man of hills and a man of wars. Like me, Shmuel HaNagid was also a man of hills and a man of wars. A man of hills in the sense, ee mount poleyulla pala hills il kude, it is talking about the kind of hilly terrain in which they both lived. Even though one person lived in Israel and the other person lived in Spain, still he is saying there is some similarity between our lives. We come from a similar kind of background. I come from a hilly area, he also comes from a hilly area. So our life experiences may be shaped by the terrain, the geographical terrain in which we grew up in. He is also, like me, a man of hills and a man of wars. He was also a soldier. He has also fought in wars just like me. A man of hills and a man of wars who sang a lullaby to his soldiers before the battle. So this is not something that you connect. You think that soldiers are people who are like always strong and very powerful and courageous, and you don't think of them even violent. People who are always killing and fighting and all that. You don't associate soldiers with lullabies. Lullaby endana താരാട്ട് പാട്ട്. It is something like what your mother or even father, but you generally associate a lullaby with what a mother sings to their child to put the children to sleep. So like that, he also, this was a man who was a soldier and a statesman. He was the embodiment of manliness, but at the same time, he was also somebody who cared for his soldiers a lot. Just like a mother would care for her children, he was a person in charge of the battle, and he cared for his soldiers. And before the battle, he would sing lullabies to his soldiers. താരാട്ട് പാട്ട് അവർക്ക് പാടിക്കൊടുക്കുമായിരുന്നു. അത് ഒറിജിനൽ താരാട്ടാണോ എന്നറിയില്ല. It might be just talking about the poems that he wrote for his soldiers. So before the battle, he used to sing lullabies to his soldiers. He was that kind of a man. So that is a similarity between me and him, that even though we are both people who fought in wars, we still have this gentleness, this tenderness in our heart, that actually even in the midst of battle, we can compose poetry, we can still sing lullaby to our soldiers. There is a tender and loving and affectionate heart inside us. Just like me, he was also like that. But there is also some difference. Like me, a man of hills and a man of wars, who sang a lullaby to his soldiers before the battle. Yet I did not talk to my heart as he did, but to my children. This is again something that we mentioned, that both of them are having conversations about war, about the things that they have done in war, about what they think of the world and how they wish the world could change. അതിനെ പറ്റിയൊക്കെ അവർ സംസാരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. എന്താണ് ശരി, എന്താണ് തെറ്റ്, അതിനെ പറ്റിയൊക്കെ അവർ സംസാരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കുന്ന ആരോടാണ്? I talk to my children. He talked to his heart. That is the difference. He did not actually have anybody to talk to, or he did not choose to talk to other people. Instead, he just talked to his own heart. And how do we know that he talked to his own heart? He has written it down in his poems. Shmuel HaNagidine എന്തൊക്കെ പറയാനുണ്ടായിരുന്നു അതെല്ലാം അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് തന്നെ മനസ്സിനോടാണ് പറഞ്ഞത്. അത് പിന്നെ കവിതയായിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹം എഴുതി വെക്കുകയാണ് ചെയ്തത്. വേറെ ഞാനും കവിത എഴുതുന്നുണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ എന്നാലും ഞാൻ ഇവിടെ എൻ്റെ മക്കളെ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് അവരോട് ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കുകയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. This is the difference between us. And what is the significance of this difference? As we already mentioned in the introduction, the poet seems to suggest that Shmuel HaNagid is actually somehow a little better than himself. ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത് എൻ്റെ മക്കളോടാണ് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്, അതിലും എന്തോ കുറച്ചുകൂടി മഹത്തരമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കാര്യമാണ് അദ്ദേഹം ചെയ്തത്. He just spoke to his heart, which could be a way of saying that I am trying to on the one hand, I'm trying to get my children to understand me and forgive me. So I'm kind of looking to them for forgiveness. I am also looking at them as my hope for the future. എങ്ങനെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഇനി മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകണം, ഈ ലോകം എങ്ങനെ കുറച്ചുകൂടി ബെറ്റർ ആക്കണം എന്നുള്ളതിന് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളെയാണ് ഞാൻ അതിനുള്ള ഹോപ്പായി കാണുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ഒരു രീതിയിൽ പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഞാൻ ചെയ്യേണ്ട പല കാര്യങ്ങളും, എനിക്ക് പറ്റാതിരുന്ന പല കാര്യങ്ങളും അവർ ചെയ്യും എന്ന് ഞാൻ പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുമ്പോൾ അവരുടെ മേലെ ഞാനൊരു റെസ്പോൺസിബിലിറ്റി വെക്കുകയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ചിലപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ ചെയ്യേണ്ട കാര്യങ്ങളായിരിക്കും, പക്ഷെ എന്തൊക്കെയോ കാരണം കൊണ്ട്, എന്റെ സർക്കംസ്റ്റാൻസസ് കൊണ്ട് എനിക്കത് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിയില്ല. ആ ഒരു പീസ്ഫുൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ലോകത്തേക്ക്, ആ ലോകം ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ കുട്ടികളുടെ ഒരു റെസ്പോൺസിബിലിറ്റി ആക്കി വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടാവാം. Maybe that is why I have brought them here and I am talking to them and telling them the history of this place. But Shmuel HaNagid was not that. He was somebody who was able to face himself. Whatever he is doing, he's able to face it himself. And in the middle of battle, he was able to care for his soldiers and also write to himself, talk to his own heart. And in the final two lines, he says, "To the mound, we were the resurrection. Fleeting like the springtime, eternal like it too." To the mount, that is to this place, Telgat, we were the resurrection. I and my children, we were the resurrection, in the sense that again, resurrection means rebirth actually. When somebody is dead and they have not rebirth, it is like bringing somebody back to life. To resurrect somebody means മരിച്ചു പോയ ഒരാളെ തിരിച്ച് ജീവനിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുവരിക എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. And I and my children are like a resurrection to the mount, because this is a place where so many battles were fought and so many people died, and now we are the hope for the future. I am the hope because I will have to bring up my children to be to a better future, and they are the hope because they will walk into a better future and they will build that better future. Therefore, we are the resurrection to everything, all the hopes and everything that died here, all the hopes for a peaceful world. So it is not just people who died here. അവിടെ ആളുകൾ മരിച്ചു, അവര് റിസറക്റ്റ് ആയി എന്നല്ല പറയുന്നത്. ഒന്ന്, ഇവിടെ കുറെ ആളുകൾ മരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്, പക്ഷേ just like the dandelion flowers which have grown up over their graves, here we are also like those dandelion flowers. We are the resurrection. So that is one way of thinking about it. ആളുകൾ മരിച്ചു, അവരുടെ ഗ്രേവിന്റെ മുകളിൽ ഫ്ലവേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ടായി വരുന്നു. അതുപോലെ ഒരുപാട് ആളുകൾ ഒരു പീസ്ഫുൾ വേൾഡിന് വേണ്ടി മരിച്ചു, പക്ഷെ ഇനി ആ പീസ്ഫുൾ വേൾഡ് ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ പോകുന്നത് നമ്മളാണ്. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ ഹീസ് ടോക്കിംഗ് അബൌട്ട് ദ എൻറ്റയർ ഹിസ്റ്ററി ഓഫ് ഹ്യൂമാനിറ്റി ആസ് എ ചെയിൻ. So whatever happened in the past is affecting what is happening in the present. What happens now will affect what happens in the future. And if we are going to have a peaceful world, it is because of the struggles of those who died before us. ആ ഒരു അങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ അവരുടെ ഒരു റീബർത്ത് ആണ്, ഒരു റിസറക്ഷൻ ആണ് നമ്മൾ. That is one way of thinking about it. Another way is connected ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു രീതിയിൽ നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, lot of people's hopes and dreams died here. And now we will be able to carry those hopes and dreams forward. So it is not just about the actual people dying, but maybe because of all these wars, the hopes and dreams for a peaceful world also seems to have died here, but actually it's not dead. We are still here, we are alive, and we will carry that dream forward. അപ്പൊ ഇങ്ങനെ രണ്ട് രീതിയിൽ നമുക്ക് അത് ഇന്റർപ്രറ്റ് ചെയ്യാം. ഒന്ന്, ശരിക്കും ഒരുപാട് ആളുകൾ മരിച്ചു, പക്ഷെ അവരുടെ ലെഗസി ക്യാരി ഫോർവേഡ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളുകളായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ഇപ്പോഴും ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളത്. മറ്റത്, ഇത്രയും യുദ്ധങ്ങളും പ്രോബ്ലംസ് ഒക്കെ കാരണം ആ ഒരു പീസ്ഫുൾ വേൾഡിന്റെ ഡ്രീം ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് ഇല്ലാതാവും, നശിച്ചു പോവും. പക്ഷെ അത് ഒരിക്കലും ഫുള്ളായി നശിക്കില്ല. ഡാൻഡലിയൻ ഫ്ലവേഴ്സിനെ പോലെ അതിനെ പറിച്ചെടുത്ത് കളഞ്ഞാലും അത് പിന്നെയും അവിടെ മുളച്ച് കിളിർത്ത് വരും. അതുപോലെയാണ് നമ്മൾ. So the human race is like that. The dream for a peaceful world is also like that. We were the resurrection to the mount. Fleeting like the springtime, eternal like it too. Just like the springtime, just like the spring season, we are fleeting. Fleeting means we are transient. നമ്മൾ ലാസ്റ്റിംഗ് അല്ലാത്തതിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഫ്ലീറ്റിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുക. സോ സ്പ്രിംഗ് എങ്ങനെയാണ്? സ്പ്രിംഗ് ഇസ് ബ്യൂട്ടിഫുൾ, but it doesn't last. After some time, spring turns into summer, summer into autumn, autumn into winter. So spring doesn't last forever. എപ്പോൾ സ്പ്രിംഗ് ഉണ്ടായാലും it will become spring will always end. No matter how beautiful the spring is, it will always end. But at the same time, we are eternal like the springtime too. Eternal in the sense that the seasons are always in cycle. So even if the spring ends, next year another spring will come. And after that, another spring will come. So എല്ലാ കാലത്തും spring time ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കും. ഒരു spring time last ചെയ്യില്ല. പക്ഷെ എല്ലാ കാലത്തും സ്പ്രിംഗ് ടൈം ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കും. സ്പ്രിംഗ് ഒക്കെ പോയാലും എന്നും അത് തിരിച്ച് വരും. അതുപോലെ തന്നെയാണ് ഹ്യൂമൻ ബീയിങ്സിന്റെ കാര്യം. We might die, individual human beings will die, but the human race will somehow still continue existing. Just like the dandelion flowers, you may pluck out the individual dandelion flowers, and of course those flowers will die, but new flowers will come up, and there will always be dandelions in the mound, on the mound. There will always be dandelions in the world. Just like that, the human race will continue to exist. Human dreams will continue to exist, even though individual human beings will die. So, just like the springtime, we are both fleeting and eternal. So, just to read that last stanza once more. I brought my children to the mound, and we sat there on its back and its side, as in the poem by Shmuel Han Nagid in Spain. Like me, a man of hills and a man of wars, who sang a lullaby to his soldiers before the battle. Yet I did not talk to my heart as he did, but to my children. To the mound, we were the resurrection, fleeting like the springtime, eternal like it too. Okay, so that was the poem. Anniversaries of War by Yehuda Amichai.